The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development. With a magazine and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Hey, welcome everyone. I have my next guest already lined up and, well, it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be amazing because, look, I've already shared with you guys, one of the biggest and one of the best smiles on the circuit is Mr. Les Brown. But you just wait till you watch Judymay's smile, who's going to be in a minute. Judymay is not only lovely, but she's just a beautiful soul. I met her quite a few years ago through quite a few mutual friends that I have or we have together. And I don't know, she's always been so lovely, always so helpful. And I've been delighted, she spoke at our event in the You EXPO in London a couple of years ago, and we've stayed connected. So Judymay Murphy is a master coach and practical neuroplasticity expert. Judymay has been at the top of the speaker industry for 19 years. She's a regular on national radio and TV shows around the world and is the personal coach to many founders of Hollywood industry giants and star speakers. She sorts the tough stuff in unique and effective ways so that you can start to harvest what you've already put into your dream. So I'm very excited to invite my next guest speaker who's going to be joining me for the next hour, Judymay Murphy. Hey, Judymay.
Hey, how are you? That's a lot of pressure on the smile there, Bernardo.
Well, listen, it comes out naturally, darling. So there's no pressure there at all. So, Judymay, look, I'm very excited for you to speak here at the EXPO. I don't want to take a lot of your time because you're obviously going to do and share it all here. I know I have invited you to come along during the week as well to come and share a few ideas with us on one of the panels. And I know also you obviously have the booth there, so I really highly invite you to come and see Judymay or one of our other talks because she's very generous with her time and has phenomenal expertise. So Judymay, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to absolutely rock this. This is the cool thing. Thank you, Bernardo, for saying those lovely things about me. And I do try and show up as a lovely person, as a generous person, as a giving person. And we're in a situation in the world right now if those of us who are lovely and generous and giving remain in more servile, non-powerful ways of showing up, then what happens is things kind of get out of kilter. And that's something that you're seeing right now. So what I am an expert in is I'm helping people who are naturally lovely, naturally more gentle, naturally a lot more thoughtful and considerate. Maybe even you have some useful handles for yourself, some useful labels that tell you which YouTube channels to go to. Things like that you suffer from CPTSD, or that you are HSP, a highly sensitive person, or that you're codependent. But something that we all need to know, no matter how you consider yourself right now, is that there's a lot more that's untapped. And what we're going to do for the next 50 minutes is we're going to just absolutely mine that seam. We're going to tap that. We're going to get that unlocked, unleashed out there, with you using everything that you have so that you can start to make things happen in a way that feels great to you. Because as well as having your usual way of showing up that's awesome, you also have your usual way of attracting certain conditions that are not so awesome. So it might be that you're known for being really creative, or maybe you're known for, being the person who's very digitally oriented and the person who kind of puts all the ducks in a row, but you're not the first kind of go-to person when you think of, hey, who in the room is going to be sexy? Who in the room is going to be funny? So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that you're not over-relying on those parts of you. And we're going to do a mini full life boot camp. And it's going to be a little bit different from what you might be expecting because as Bernardo was saying, I'm actually the coach for a lot of the household name speakers, whether that is helping them to create content or helping them with their next stages in their life or helping them with their families. And the reason that I'm really, really gung-ho about doing that is because I have no desire for spotlight. There are a lot of speakers and they love it. They would have, if they played guitar better, they would have been pop stars. I'm not one of those. And so this is why I really, really delight in doing these deep dives into what's going on here. What is going on here? So I'm usually less focused on how can I compartmentalize this in a way that it will be accessible to absolutely everybody? The way of saying, right, let's reduce these down into 2 usable parts and let's get people looking at, are they this or are they this? Instead, I'm all about creating a bit more complexity because there's a time for each. Let's imagine that you have a choice to make, and that choice is, suppose you are in the sea and you're getting in trouble, you're swimming around, you're getting in trouble, and you've got a choice that you can either reach for a hand that's coming down to help you, or you can reach for this boat over here. Binary choice, it's easy. The whole thing is just pick one. Or you can reach for the killer shark, or you can reach for the hand. Easy choice, you reach for the hand, right? So sometimes it's good to have things being really simple for you. Other times you need to make it more complex. You need to think, what else could it be? So the first thing we're going to look at with that is this idea of fear, because fear is a really useful concept. We all get it. It's a very simple concept. We all know what it feels like. It feels like something that, if we were a dog and we had a leash on us, it feels just like it's that leash holding us back big time from what it is that we want to do. And in those terms, it's really, really good and useful phrase because we can all understand it. We can all say, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be in that place. I want to be in a place where I'm just kicking ass and making it happen and moving forward. But somehow, although I don't feel fear, I'm still not moving forward. What is that about? Well, there's something that I'd like you, if you do find that it's not about a physical moving forward, because often, you'll be there and you'll have something like you've got to make a whole list of phone calls, right? You've got this really great list of phone calls. You're committed to it. You know who you're phoning, how you're phoning, when you're phoning, what you're going to be saying, what the outcome is that you want to get, all that super good stuff. But you somehow aren't doing it. And that somehow is such a mystery to people that what they then do is they then search their brains for why is this happening? And they find a historical answer. And that historical answer is something that they developed as they grew up through their family of origin normally, or maybe a little bit later. And that was an idea of I am something. I am lazy. I am a procrastinator. I am too timid. I am not able to do this. Do you remember in school? Wasn't that insane? I remember in our school, I went to, when we moved to Dublin when I was 8, I went to an all-girls school for the next 10 years. And in every single class, we had a really, really strong idea of what everybody could and couldn't do. Lisa was really good at art. Gemma was really good at singing. Emma was really good at running. Judymay was really good at Irish. Yeah, I know. I don't really speak it these days. But everybody, there was this cultural idea of who was good at what and who could do what. And so we just stopped trying at the other stuff because equally then we had an idea of what we're not good at. I had an idea for years that I'm not good at history. These days, history is just one of my passions, reading about history, researching it. I've got friends who are professors and we sit there and we chat all about things and I learn from them. So whatever your idea is that I'm not good at this or I'm not this, we got to realize that's historical. And the reason that we've got to realize this and take control of it isn't just so that we can expand our identity and move into behaving in new ways, but also so that we can really get to grips with this thing called justification. Okay, so what am I talking about here with justification? Justification is actually the thing that you, in practical terms, need to look out for. In your day-to-day, when you're moving forward or when you're not moving forward, what's happening is you are justifying that moment. You're justifying not taking that action. And that is something that you can do something about, because normally we don't sit there and say, oh, I must be afraid. What am I afraid of? Because your brain will just go, I'm not afraid. And then your brain will think it's very, very clever, because that's sometimes what brains do. And you'll say to yourself, yeah, you know what? I'm justifying this. I'm saying I'm making it okay for me to not do this. I'm creating a little story around it. So your justification, if you do procrastination, is basically the thing's not getting done, but your story is I will do it later. Another justification might be something like, they're more likely to be in the office on Monday morning, so I'll wait until then. Successful people don't do that. What we do is we say, okay, I'm going to leave a message now, and maybe they will love to talk to me over the weekend because, hey, I'm great, and they've got the whole weekend. And maybe they want to get it moving before Monday. Why would I wait till Monday? But when something is new, when something isn't something that you've done a lot of times, you pull back, and you pull back with a justification. That's how you know you're pulling back. The really dangerous thing is justifications sound so plausible. They sound so plausible. It's like nobody could argue with that. And this is why I also do one-to-one coaching with people all the time. And they can't believe how tough I am on them. And I'm really, really tough on my coaching clients in a good directed way. But they'll say something like, oh, I can't because it's my 5-year-old's birthday. Or my daughter's turning 5. Who would argue against the importance of a 5-year-old's birthday? Well, I would. So the way I would argue it is, okay, the birthday is the most important thing in that day because this child is the most important child in your life. But hey, she's at school until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So what's going to happen between 9 and 2? Oh, well, I have to go and make this happen and make that happen. Do you have to do it? Well, yeah, I really, really want to do it. Another justification, if I am a good mother or if I am a good father, this is the kind of thing that we do. And so just looking at, well, is that true? Is that actually true? And then saying, well, is it just that it feels a bit weird? Is it just that it feels a bit new? Is it that I don't feel like doing it? And very often it's that, and we're not moving forward with that. So what makes justifications kick in? Why is it that we get to the point of just a full stop? And then this neat little dance that we do that says, oh, yeah, we're going to do it on Monday. Oh, yeah, I have to because you'll have to excuse me. It's been really hot here in London. I'm in London in Kensington. And the room I'm in now is this vast room with a glass ceiling and glass walls. And so the aircon is a little bit intrusive. So my apologies for that. But so you hit this place, and this place is saying you can't go any further. It just, it's not possible. And it all sounds really plausible. It all sounds really good. It sounds like, I remember when I was a kid and you'd break your pencil in class and be like, oh, miss, I can't do it because I broke my pencil. Or in our school, it would have been, oh, sister, I can't do it. I broke my pencil. And they would always say, haven't you heard of a pencil sharpener? And that's kind of what I'm saying to you. Haven't you heard of a pencil sharpener? Can't you find a way to fix it? And then you're just like, yeah, so what's going on with me? And very often then people will think that there's something broken about their dream. And they'll try and switch track and they'll go, oh, you know what? I thought it was I wanted to write my book, or I thought it was I wanted to create this TV show, or I thought it was I wanted to go on the road again. But in fact, what I really want is, and I'll stop you right there, and I'll say, no, that's you trying to get comfortable. Let's look at the thing that you identified that you wanted to make happen before you actually got into bed with it, before you actually started to make the work happen. Because you know what? You're going to hit that same kind of wall no matter what it is that you do. And really your learning is about how to get yourself through that and how to move on to a different place from that. So what is it that we're being told? What is it that's going on? Why do we need to justify and kind of do our little sideways shuffle all the time? Well, the reason for that is because there's three things that happen. That either the thing that we want to make happen is fuzzy. Well, first of all, it has to be, it's fantasy, or it's fuzzy, or it's freaky. Okay, it's either one of those three things. It's either fantasy, or it's fuzzy, or it's freaky. So what on earth are we talking about there? Well, first of all, your brain won't want to do something if it believes that there's no point doing it. If it believes that it's, well, this is a fantasy. This isn't real. This isn't something that actually happens to people. And I started to do this really cool thing about 15 years ago. I've been in this business full time for 20 years. Many of you have seen me on, big stages around the world in that time. And I was already a coach. I'd already been a coach and speaker for about 5 years when I realized, you know what? I'm doing the dutiful stuff. I'm doing the stuff that's like, buy property and have a company and get your books out there. I've got 7 books in 28 different countries. And last year, actually, dream come true stuff, had my first poetry book published around the world. It's called Monster Proof Poetry. It's kind of self-help, but in poetry form. And it's tough. So this is what I'd like you to look at is, what is your actual dream? Not the dutiful one, not the one that will make you feel that you're somehow not broken, but the one that you actually want. Because when you can flex your muscle and you can really start to grow yourself strong around that, the other stuff just becomes really, really easy. The stuff that's just a little bit more mundane, that's not really your dream, but it's the necessary scaffolding for the rest of your
For
dream.
complimentary resources from my book, my complimentary e-course, The Power of the Question, or recommended reads, go to www.thequestion.com/resources. For more information on my coaching or mentoring, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
So what I did was I decided that I was going to set myself some goals. I was going to identify what is it that I really, really wanted. And at the time, there was that TV show in the States, it's called Dancing with the Stars. And in the UK, it's called Strictly Come Dancing. So you've got your version of it, whatever country you're listening to us from. And there was this amazing dancer, and I was so jealous of the girl that got to dance with him. He was really fun and really lovely and really on point, like a really powerful teacher and dancer. And I just thought, wow, she must be having the best time. I stalked that poor guy. I was on tour at the time. I've been back home to Dublin for a little bit, watched it with my mom, thought, yeah, that's the guy that I want to dance with. And while I was on tour, I was stalking him. And I remember I finally got hold of him when I was in Dallas, Texas. It was part of the Learning Annex Real Estate Wealth Expo tour, if anyone remembers that one from years ago. And I got talking to him and he goes, "It's not what I do." And I said, "Yeah, but it could be, couldn't it? It could be." And he said, "Well, I don't have a studio at the moment." I said, "Great, I'll hire one. Do you know any?" And he recommended the Kensington Ballroom. Great place, absolutely gorgeous. And then he said, "But you know what? It's going to cost a lot. My fees are really high." I said, "Name it." And I ended up paying a huge amount of money. Even for now, that would be something that I'd be like, okay, do I really want this? It was an enormous amount of money to train with him for a week in this ballroom. And I did it. And I've done the same thing. There's people I admire out there in the world, and now I get to hang out with them. So I'd like you to have a think about, why are you considering that fantasy? Who told you that that was fantasy world stuff? Because whoever it is you want to be hanging out with, and I'm so blessed. I hang out with some extraordinary people now. I'm a member of a couple of private clubs in London and in New York. And my friend set is just, the best thing, this is where you want to get to with your friends. You want to get to a place where you think you've got the best deal by far, and they think the same thing. And that really is what you want to aim for. But if you're just thinking that, okay, these people are outside of my reach, that's just fantasy. No, if you really, really want something, that is your indication that it must come true. And you can either look around and find out someone that it did come true for, that someone that did make that happen. You can do that. Or you can just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the first. And either way, you're going to just have so much fun on the way. And maybe you'll decide you want something slightly different. Or maybe, hey, you might just get that. You might have that thing happen. My whole life now is about, oh my goodness, I've got to pinch myself. I can't believe this is my life. I end up having the most extraordinary adventures. I can be standing in the middle of a huge art gallery, like the National Art Gallery in London or the Louvre in Paris, and I can be the only one in a particular room, in a particular salon, like with these extraordinary paintings, and there's no one around, not even a security guard. Now, if you're into art, you'll get that. If you're not, forget about it. You've got your version of it. So this is what you've got to do, is you've got to say, what feels impossible? What feels like it just can't be done, but you've got to really want it, because that's the clue that something is your dream as opposed to somebody else's, or a dream that's been fed to you. And the thing is that it's a little bit weird. Other people won't get it. If it's something that everyone's just kind of like, oh yeah, sports car, that's cool. Oh yeah, this, that's cool. Oh yeah, the swimming pool, that's cool. Yeah, those are great. And you might really, really want those, but you're kind of missing the you part of that. So anytime that something feels like it is fantasy, I'm using the clock here or I was using the clock here on this computer. There we go. Just want to keep track of time because I promised you that we would get everything done in this 50-minute slot. And this is what we're going to do. So that's the first thing, is let yourself know that you were given that dream for a reason. You were given that dream for a reason. And that wasn't so that you could compare yourself to what could be and suffer. Or, if something's in you, that's the thing you got to make happen. That's the movies that we love watching, right? Those movies are the ones where it's like, the person had a dream and no one else believed in them. Well, stop watching those movies and start living it. Start being the living example of it. Be the person that someone ends up 5 years from now writing the movie about. It's a lot more fun. I say this to all of my clients, that that if you're addicted to, say, watching box sets and things. When I was watching Strictly Come Dancing, it was for a really good reason. My mom was very ill and she passed away. And all she could really do was watch television. It's all she wanted to do. She'd been a doctor for her whole life, a really extraordinary woman. But if I watch TV or I watch a movie, I've got a really, really good reason, which leads me to a point that I wasn't going to make, but I think it's really important that you hear this. And it's this, that everything that you choose in your life, absolutely everything, it's either building your dream or it's killing your dream. Nothing else in the middle. It's one thing or the other. And it might be that it is building your dream in a really weak, long-winded kind of way, but it's still building. And it might be that it is killing your dream in a very weak, long-winded way, but it's still killing your dream. So have a look at that. I'm very clear with everything that I eat. Is this building my dream or is it killing it? So if it's lunchtime, I'm going to be eating a great big salad with loads of good things in it. And that's going to be my meal. And because I know that is giving me the energy. I'm in my 50s now and, I need even more energy because I've got more stuff going on. And this is what we need to do, is we need to make sure that we have that energy. So me eating that salad at lunchtime with loads of nuts, lentils, cucumbers, red peppers, everything in it, that is building my dream. However, if I am sitting on the balcony of a beautiful 5-star hotel with a friend or with a business partner or with a colleague, like the great people you're going to meet here at the Best You EXPO this week, then, if there's a Michelin star chef and I'm told there's this great vegan dessert that they do here, I'm going to be like, yes, because that was like part of my dream, was to have these really good food experiences around the world with these wonderful people. So get in the habit of asking yourself that with everything. Are you going to drink the soda or are you going to drink the water? And you know what? It's easy. We've got to get rid of this idea that somehow having a high standard and living to that high standard is, Spartan or like overly rigid. It's really not. I mean, I haven't had a soda like any of those fizzy drinks for 20 years now, or at least 19. Same thing with coffee. I looked at coffee, wasn't working for me. Haven't had coffee in at least as long. Same thing for processed goods, like all of that. It's okay. You can learn how to do it. Anything that you want to make happen in this world, you can make it happen. You've got to be constantly choosing the thing that is that is building your dream. And yeah, there's going to be slipbacks, but that's okay. We're going to make sure that there are as few of those as possible. So let me just stick to my handy dandy list here, because I did want to make sure that we get all this done. So we talked about fantasy, and now we need to talk about if something is fuzzy. Because it could be like you're like, okay, I can do this now. I believe that this can be done. And I also believe that this is going to massively add to my life. Because if you don't believe something's going to massively add to your life, your brain's going to be like, it won't be worth it. Really won't be worth it. So make sure that your dream is big enough and you enough that your brain believes it's worth it. So we've moved on from fantasy and now we're into fuzzy. Now we're kind of like, what does that really look like? The brain does not like to step forward into fuzzy. It really doesn't. It feels like stepping off a cliff. It really doesn't like that. If it doesn't know exactly what to do, you'll find yourself again moving into justification. So everything that we're talking about here, if we don't believe it's really going to happen, we justify, and we sort of say, "Oh, that can't be." If it's too fuzzy, we justify, and we say things like, "Oh, I'll just do this other thing first." I meet it all the time when I help people to write their book and get them published with really big publishing houses. I don't help people with self-help books. There's other wonderful people that do that. But I love to get people sort of on the shelves worldwide with really big deals. And the hilarious thing is they go into it and they're all excited, and then they're just kind of like, "Oh, but I'm so overwhelmed." It's like, yeah, because you haven't structured it. You don't know exactly what you're sitting down to every day. It's impossible to write a book if you're trying to write a book every single day. But if every single day, instead, you are writing 500 words about this specific thing in this time slot, and then you're writing 500 words about this specific thing, or to take you to this specific plot point in this time slot, then it becomes doable because your brain has direct, clear instructions. Clear instructions. This is the thing that's often missing. So it's not maybe that you're feeling fearful around it. Maybe it's just that you lack clarity. So getting clarity on board, really, really clear. Something I just thought of, there's Stu Middleman, a friend of mine who I used to pal around with back in the early 2000s, long distance runner, amazing guy. And he famously, he did a lot of ultra marathons. He'd be running like 4 marathons a day. I mean, the guy is just amazing. And at the time, actually, I got myself up to a pretty good 10K habit from a standing start. And we mean literally a standing start. I couldn't run the length of myself when I started to run. And yeah, I got myself up to 10K. And then after that, realized, you know what, this isn't really me. And that's when I became really into things like Argentine tango and yoga. So I'll just drop these things in. This isn't me showing off about my life. This is just me letting you know that no matter where you're starting from, no matter what age you are, no matter what background you are, no matter what part of the world that you're in, you can carve and create this extraordinary life for yourself. So what Stu said was, he said he was famous for running from San Diego to New York. And when people asked him, how did you do that? How did you run from San Diego all the way to New York? How did you run 1,000 miles? He said, I never ran 1,000 miles. I ran 1 mile 1,000 times. And that's really all you're asked to do. You're asked to do life one day at a time, one conversation at a time. But if you are not clear, if you're constantly justifying, choosing the thing that isn't of your dream, isn't building your dream, well, then it's going to be a long time coming and you're going to be frustrated. And that then is going to build into the unhelpful fantasy stories that you have about your lack of ability or the lack of the support that you have out there in the world. So, let's get clear that the only thing that we need to tweak is sort of like mindset and the way that the mind is affecting the body and the way that we're taking action or not taking action. So a little bit of a recap, what we're talking about here. And I am talking very quickly on purpose because I really want to make sure that I've never wanted to be one of those speakers that takes the first half hour out of an hour talking about themselves and then gets to the meat of it. I really want to make sure that that you're getting usable things immediately. So we've talked about justification. We've talked about the 3 things that cause us to go into justification. And those are if something is fantasy, if something is fuzzy, and if something is freaky. What's freaky? Freaky is just, you know what freaky is. Freaky's freaky, right? There's good freaky. There's like letting your freak flag fly kind of freaky. And then there's the kind of freaky that's just like, this is weird. I'm just stepping away. Here in Kensington, there's a lot of people who have dogs, a lot of elderly people, and a lot of them are away at the moment on vacation. And so I've become the local neighborhood dog walker, simply to grow myself because I've never owned a dog and I just wanted that discipline of having to show up 4 times a day. So I go around and I collect a dog from a neighbor and bring them for a walk. And I met someone today when I was doing that and I was just like, okay, this is the wrong kind of freaky. So there's the kind of freaky that's sending you a message that says, run, okay? So there's that, right? And that, if you're someone who grew up in a difficult situation, then it could be that your red flag machine is broken. So most people would have a red flag that would fly. When you see a freaky person, or you see a situation like someone says to you, hey, sign up for this, then within 20 days, you'll be a multimillionaire. And, you've got a little red flag that just kind of goes, no, that doesn't ring true to me. Let me ask some more questions here, or let me go and find something that seems a little bit more viable. And when you do that, when you can learn how to do that, if you're someone whose red flag machine is broken, you've probably ended up in a lot of really harmful business situations, harmful relationship situations. And something that I actually specialize in is people who constantly are attracting situations that are fantastic in the beginning and then very, very quickly turn really, really not good. So that's not the kind of freaky that we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is just the freaky that's kind of new. And there's two ways of looking at it, okay? Because when you look at it, you can do something about it. You can identify it and you can go, oh, okay, like with fuzzy, hey, I just haven't worked out what the steps are. And then you can sit down either with your coach or with a mentor, or by yourself, even if it's something that's quite straightforward, and you can just work out what the steps are. So the same thing then, if something's freaky, it's one of two things. It's either that it's too big. So you now have clarity about what your thing is, and it's just this great, big, enormous thing, and just feels freaky because it's just kind of like, oh my God, this is impossibly large. This thing's going to fall on me. It's going to bury me, right? So that's the first part of freaky. And then the second part of freaky is I'm too little. And again, that is, based on either toxic shame from childhood or just ideas, references that are probably valid. That maybe you did make a ton of mistakes with money, and now you're kind of wearing it as I'm no good with money, rather than I had some stuff to learn about money. So we've got to be really careful how we talk to ourselves about ourselves. So what do we do with it's too big? So our answer with it's too big. So we've got clear, right? So that's always, we've got to do this in order. We've got to make sure that we believe in it, that it's not fantasy. Then we got to make sure that it's clear, so it's not fuzzy. And then we got to look at it and say, okay, well, this is feeling just a bit much right now. How do we chunk it? So if someone is writing a 100,000 word novel, it's kind of like, all right, let's just do it that we do 10,000 words per week. And then it's going to take us 10 weeks and we'll have the first draft completely in the computer. And then it starts to feel doable. Okay, I can do that. If I'm working 5 days a week on my novel, what does that add up to per day? It's 2,000 words per day. You know what? I can do that. In fact, that's 1,000 words in the morning and 1,000 words in the afternoon. And suddenly life starts to feel doable. Same thing. I remember when I learned to run, I didn't run all the way around the block, just as Stu Mittleman didn't run all the way from San Diego to New York. What I did was I ran to the bus stop, and then I walked to the petrol station, and then I ran to the church. And keep in mind, these places were really close to each other. These places were like meters away from each other. That's how bad I was at running. But when I chunked it down that way, and I thought about it as, well, you know what? I only have to run half the time and I'm walking the other half of the time. It became doable. And it's the same thing for you. If you're opening a cafe, okay, we've got to look at getting all our licenses in order. We got to look at getting our staff together. We got to look at, so we just chunk it in ways that we're like, okay, this is this here, this is this here, this is this here. Part of chunking is to make sure also that you have your timing in order, because just leaving a big pile of stuff sitting there and you're like, well, I get to that eventually. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't kind of trip your switch. It doesn't make you excited about, you don't feel the achievement unless there's a definite time frame for that happening. All right, so here's the bit that I am most concerned about for you. And that's the bit that says, I'm too little. The bit that is toxically shame-based, that is feeling that, you've made too many mistakes in the past, feeling that you maybe shouldn't be forgiven for some of those mistakes because they were so monumental. Meet your sister, right? That it's human. It's human if you are in any way conscientious to feel that way. Have you noticed that a lot of the people who make it really big in the world aren't very conscientious? They really don't care. So they kind of bypass all these internal signals of I could be a nicer person or I could be doing better. And because they're able to bypass those signals, they just forge ahead, often in these really obnoxious ways, often like just really loud and really proud of themselves and feeling really superior. Whereas those of us who do have a conscience, those of us who do care about, well, the last time I did that, it didn't work out and other people were let down too. We are often the ones that are left in the smaller positions. So what we've got to do is we've got to say to ourselves, how is it different now? How am I different now? What have I learned? What would I not do again? And just journal that. I know, I wish it was more exciting than just journal it, but it is. Journal it or talk it through with your coach. Just get yourself to a point where you know that it's going to be very different. Because if your brain believes that you're going to be carrying that same amount of pain again, it really, really is not going to want to move forward because you'll be just constantly trying to avoid pain. But when you can say to yourself, you know what, this is going to be different this time. It's going to feel pretty good. And if anything does come up, I don't have to get myself into a position where it's just devastating and life-threatening and you're losing sleep over it. Just checking the time.
For more
again.
information on collaborating, partnering, sponsoring, supporting, or speaking at any of our events or finding out more about our legacy clubs, go to www.thebestyou.co. If you're interested in finding out more about the amazing content we have, please go to www.thebestyou.online and get your 14-day free trial now.
All right, we're doing great. We're doing great, guys. So that's what we need to do is we need to say to ourselves, we need to catch ourselves justifying. So that's the first thing. So catch yourself in a justification. So how do you know that you're justifying? Because you're not getting done what you've promised yourself you'll do. So I loved Don Miguel Ruiz, who has his 4 agreements. And the first one is about keeping your word. And the really important part of that is to keep your word to yourself. Otherwise, you go through life not being able to believe you. So you put something on your schedule, you put something on your calendar for the day, and you kind of half wonder, is that going to happen or not? I have this thing now in my life that if it's on the schedule, it's done. It's just done. And I have that confidence because I've done it over and over and over again. And sometimes it's meant that I've had to get really creative. Like it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I've said that I was going to be working on this, but now suddenly I have to go and do something else. There's a client who has just landed an audition for something enormous, or just has to go into a contract meeting suddenly and they need me before they go in, something like that. And I'm like, okay, right, this thing that I told myself was going to get done, what am I going to do about that? So it might be that I was telling myself that I was going to stretch, for example. So I can say to my client, yeah, you know what, we can have that conversation, but it's going to be audio and I'm going to be stretching as we speak. And they're like, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So that's how you learn how to keep your word to yourself, is just have that higher standard. Like you would not let down. Think of the person that you love most, that you absolutely adore, that's someone that you want them to think well of you, someone who you want to protect. You would not let them down. You would not say to them that you're bringing them out shopping or bringing them out for lunch on Saturday, or, you know, going to the beach with them, and then suddenly call them and go, oh, I'm sorry, it's raining. Or, oh, was it this Saturday? I was sure it was next Saturday. Well, we can do it next Saturday. You wouldn't do that to someone that you really love. So why are you doing it to yourself? Why? That nonsense needs to stop. It really, really does. So, you know, be your own best cheerleader. That really, really is that simple. Get behind yourself and throughout your day, rather than disassociating. So what's disassociating? It's a fancy term for a really simple thing that we do where we kind of just disappear back into ourselves and we kind of daydream a little bit and we kind of, you know, get a little bit mellowed out maybe, or just, it's a way of escaping. So you might physically be there, but you're not actually there. It's called proximal abandonment. And often you're abandoning others. You know what it's like. Maybe if you had a parent who, was sitting watching TV every evening and they were physically there, but they weren't engaged with you. Or if you had ever worked with someone and they will sort of be like, during the meetings, but you know that they're not contributing. They're not really in the game. And that's what we want to do. We want to get in that game. We want to get in that arena. So let's start just looking at what's going on moment to moment to moment, rather than trying to bulldoze with full energy through the day. Because if we do that, yeah, we can bulldoze through, we can get a lot done. But if you don't have the kind of body that supports that more bulldozer-ish approach, so that really works for people who have a lot of dopamine, who are really excited and really activity-based. And also it works with people who've got a lot of testosterone. I've got a lot of estrogen, right? A lot of energy that is flow energy, that's creative energy. And also that's, it really suits me to sit still for hours on end, studying philosophy, psychology, history, all these kind of things. So that's how I do life. I can't, I always say that I specialize in the people who can't lean in without passing out. I mean, I'm one of those. It's a more gentle way of being. And so when I'm coaching more traditionally powerful people, let's put it that way, the people who do have that massive push energy, that massive fight energy. I used to coach a lot of stand-up comedians, and they really had that. They were charming, but they would just fight. They'd fight for that laugh. And I've got to know what kind of person the person is in front of me. So equally, you have to know the person that you're dealing with daily, because you're being your own best coach first, right? You're being there for you. You're showing up for you. You're asking the right questions. You're doing the cheerleading. So let's become more effective coaches of ourselves. Alrighty. So what else were we going to be looking at? Yeah, normally when we do a boot camp kind of situation, the way that it's chunked, and this is because this was the easiest ways usually for it to be taught in different academies. But the way it's often chunked is, okay, we're going to look at your money, and we're going to look at your your body, and we're going to look at your relationships, and we're going to look at and that's good. That's useful. It does have its uses. It's a way of you compartmentalizing and strategizing and measuring. The challenge with kind of dividing your life up in that way is your emotional self, your nervous system, your way of thinking. That's not how you think of you. You think of you in terms of, am I on fire, or am I kind of a bit blah, right? Or you think of you in terms of, am I being accepted or rejected? You think of you in terms of, do I have energy, or am I lacking in energy? These are the ways that you think about you. So doesn't it make sense for you to transform yourself and overhaul yourself using those criteria, rather than, how's my relationship going? How's this going? How's that going? Because if you think about it, all those other things I mentioned, they play into all those strategic, or all those different elements. So if you are really low energy, that is going to impact on your relationships and your money and your career and your this and your that, because you're just not going to have it to bring it. Same thing for if you realize that it takes you a long time to bounce back from disappointment. Disappointment, how do you handle disappointment, isn't normally a thing that you're asked to rate from 1 to 10, but that's how I work with people, is because that's the thing that just stops you from doing the things you need and want to do. So if I were to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, or let me put it this way, compared to how it was 10 years ago, are you better at hearing unexpected news that's not in your favor, or are you worse at hearing unexpected news that's not in your favor? Because maybe if you had something happen to you, like an unexpected death in the family, or maybe if you had to go bankrupt in the last decade, that maybe your nervous system is now wired that you don't bounce back so quickly. Or maybe it's that nothing particularly terrible has happened beyond the usual kind of bumps and grinds of life. And you are finding now that with maturity, you're able to say, okay, that was unexpected. I need to regroup. I need to think about this. I need to do radical self-care. I need to get myself back on track. I need to get some advice. I need to get some new strategy around it. And perhaps it doesn't just take you out in the way that it used to. But when we're doing a full life boot camp, that's exactly what we need to look at. We need to look at, what I would advise you to do is put your life into, what's the best way for me to describe it? Organize your thinking around what it is that hasn't been working. So what is it that hasn't been working? What is it that has felt in you that has been what do you feel has been stopping you, say, for example, earning money? So saying to yourself, oh, yeah, I'm looking at a money quadrant now, and I haven't made any extra money. We're not really any further along with fixing that. But if you say to yourself, you know what? I have a tendency to not be consistent. I have a tendency to jump from one activity to another. I have a tendency to need to be entertained by my day. And that is what causes my lack of consistency in my money making, and that causes my money result. So we're going further upstream. And sometimes we've got to go further upstream again. And we look at, what is causing the lack of consistency? Oh, it's an attachment trauma. That means that anybody who asks me to do anything, I'll run along and be part of their project or help them with something. So we've got to go far enough upstream that we can actually sort the thing that needs sorting, because your challenge is not strategy. It really isn't. There's just too many great strategies out there that are really, really simple. And if you've been following even most basic strategies, supposing you want to completely transform your body, and if you've been just eating a little bit better and working out a little bit more, your body would be different right now. So we know it's not strategy. But also, for a lot of people, they will go one step upstream and they'll say, yeah, you know what, I'm not doing enough. Well, I'll look at, let's look back to why aren't you doing enough? And then we're back to our whole idea of fantasy, fuzzy, and freaky. And then, we can go further upstream again and go, why is it whenever I get to the point of having to step into something, that it's the I'm too little part that trips me up, or it's the how do I get clarity part that trips me up every time. So the more information that you have about you and your way of doing things, the easier it is for you to just sort that. And people are always amazed at how quickly things can turn around once they have that particular breakthrough. If you want to join me, by the way, I'm not a big silly person. If you want to join me, we have a whole 1-day boot camp where we are looking at all these things in real time. We're sitting there live across 4.5 hours next Saturday. And there are also recordings if you want to do it again, or if you can't do it live the first time. So just reach out, info@judymay.tv, and either myself or someone from my office will get a hold of you, and we'll just let you know everything. We're not trying to get you to do something that's not for you. You'll know if my way of thinking and my way of doing things is useful. And if it is, it's absolutely my pleasure to be here for you. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is, let's look, we've touched on this a little bit, and this is the idea of your emotional default. So we can see in the world that the people who are more pushy, and also the people who can just go all day, that those, for example, tend to be better at making big money. The people who are really good at kind of thinking and strategizing and, going back into their world before joining the world outside, that they tend to do a lot more deep creative work. They tend to be really good as therapists, for example, or coaches of a particular style. And so it's really useful for you to know which type you are, so that you can also start to co-opt the ways of the other types. Because what happens is we tend to start to default to the one that we're most comfortable with. And the reason that you chose that particular way of coping, let's just call it that, is because it worked for you at the time. And it might have been that in your household, all the other positions were taken. There was already someone who was really feisty and pushy and loud. There was already someone who was like really, busy and running all around the place. The other type then is, I'll go over them in a moment, but if the other positions were taken, then you probably just took the one that was left. Okay, there's space for that. Particularly if you're, a child that's later on down the family line. If you're like, I come from an typical Irish family, 5 kids. That wasn't a big family for when I was growing up. Those girls in my class had like 13 kids in their families. But it's really interesting how so many of the kids could have this different style, this different way of relating. So, it's all about the F's tonight, isn't it? So please don't confuse our original model. This is a model I came up with about 10 years ago, and I've been teaching it ever since, the idea of fantasy, fuzzy, and freaky. And then we've got this other one, 4Fs, which I actually learned from people like Dr. Judith Herman, and who else is really awesome? Pete Walker is really great at that. Also, a lot of the ideas from that from people like Dr. John Bradshaw, Bessel van der Kolk. There's a lot of people who are really, really great at how did your nervous system, how did your brain get formed, and then what does that mean for you moving forward? So the 4Fs in this particular model are fight, flight, freeze, and friend. Okay, sometimes people will call it fawn, but a lot of people don't know what fawning is, so I prefer to use the word friend. So when you've got a fight response, it doesn't mean necessarily that you are particularly combative. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily someone who likes conflict. It just means that you tend to really lean into things. I'm just realizing that, you know what, guys, I'm running out of time already. So really quickly, flight is about you just going off doing loads of crazy stuff. Friend is about you just making sure other people are okay so that you're okay. And freeze then is about you just disappearing off into yourself to try and make it all okay inside yourself. I'm so sorry that we don't have time for more. Please come and work with me. I would love to. And if you think you might like to work with me, just get in touch through Facebook or through Instagram. I'm super friendly, super available. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to what you need, and hopefully we can do more stuff together. But it's been such a pleasure to be here at the LA version of the Best You Expo. And over the next year, Best You has incredible things coming up in Dubai, in London, all virtual, for as long as we need to keep ourselves safe and love each other in this way. So thank you so much for being here with me tonight, depending on what part of the world that you're in. And I really, really hope to see you and speak to you soon.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.